Welcome to the show, everybody. This is your boy, Lo Jackson. This is the Only You podcast where we talk about everyday situations, life occurrences, and all kinds of other different stuff. But I'm more about encouraging, more about doing, more about believing, more about seeing. If I can dream it, I can do it. And I believe in what Walt Disney said. It's all worth it in the end. Today, I want to talk about a book that I had come across. It's called Surrounded by Idiots by Thomas Erickson. It describes the 4 types of human behavior and how to effectively communicate in business and in life. And for years in my life, I really thought there was a lot of stuff wrong with me. And it's wild that since 18, I've read so many psychological books because people around me growing up were always so quick to jump and say, "Oh, you're an idiot. Oh, you're a dumbass." And it's like, no, I know. Actually, I wasn't. I had a unique personality, which is a rare personality for a guy to have my personality, and I appreciate it. So Surrounded by Idiots is based off the DISC system. It's DISC, which it's an acronym that stands for dominance, inspiration, stability, and compliance ability systems. So the 4 terms are the primary behavior types, which describe how people see themselves in relationships and in their environment. Each of these behavior types are associated with a color. So the dominance would be red, inspiration would be yellow, stability would be green, and compliance would be blue. And in this book, he describes that, like, a red, obviously it means dominance, but their anger is like a shot glass. That's how fast a red gets mad. Obviously, it points to the color red. A yellow, their anger level is a glass full. It takes them a glass full to blow up or explode. A green, which is the most common type person in the world today, is the stable. And they're a gallon. So it takes a gallon to make them finally explode. And that's a long time for a green. And then you come to the blues, which they're a barrel. It takes them a barrel full before they finally explode. But when they do, let's just say that it's bigger than any tsunami we've seen on the planet. I used to have a partner at a job, and I never understood why he and I, we liked each other as human beings, and we appreciated one another's intelligence, but socially we did not like each other, I think. And I think I'm safe to say that. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I misinterpreted, but he was a blue, and I am a yellow. So, from this gentleman's book. And I never really understood why he was the way he was, because he wanted to do everything slow, calm, patiently, because a blue needs every little bit of information to make a decision. Your blues are people like executives, supervisors, and people that have higher up jobs that are very in tune with what's going on around them. So I'll tell you some of the behavioral characteristics of each color, okay? So reds are aggressive, they're ambitious. A red is strong willed. Reds are goal-oriented, pushy, problem solvers, pioneers, decisive, innovators, and patient. Reds are controlling. Reds are convincing. Reds are performance-oriented. These are your supervisors. These are some of the dads in the world, Trust me, I've met them. Very, very hard to get along with sometimes when they're very strict. Reds are result-oriented. Reds are initiators. Reds like speed. Reds are timekeepers, intense, opinionated, straightforward, and independent. And remember, red is and the dis system is dominant. So they're a dominant, and that means what it says. The negatives about the dominant are they are pushy. Another negative is they are strict, like I said earlier. Another one is they are tough, dominant, and they are hard. And some of their positives, some of Red's positives are they're strong-willed, they're independent, they're ambitious, they're determined, and they are effective. And that's why they make such great supervisors or machine operators, nurse directors, directors of a nursing staff, stuff like that. They can take on a lot of responsibility because, they're goal-oriented, they're goal-driven, and they're, ambitious. So that's a great thing. Now, yellows, so you guys, this is me, and anybody that's listening to this that knows me would agree. Yellows are talkative, enthusiastic, persuasive, creative, optimistic, social, spontaneous. Yellows are expressive. Yellows are charming. Yellows are full of vitality, self-centered, sensitive, adaptable, inspiring. Yellows need attention. Yellows are encouraging, communicative, flexible, open, sociable, imaginative, and easygoing. Some of my negatives are I'm manipulative, which is true. I can be at times. Oh, I'm hot-tempered. That's one of my definites, yes. Which I am actually, in the last couple of years, I've gotten my temper quite under the control of my mind now. It's understood. Another negative about yellows are they're undisciplined, counteractive, and egotistical. And sometimes I agree with some of these and sometimes I don't. But positives are inspiring, stimulating. Yellows are enthusiastic. Yellows are dramatic. And yellows are outgoing. And I am. And I have a lot of friends because I'm this way. And I find people interesting. And, that's the one thing about my personality is I love people. I love talking. And my mouth never stops. Obviously, I'm doing a podcast. And I'm here alone by myself with a microphone. You put a yellow in a room by himself, he'll find himself to talk to. And that's true. This guy, in the writer of this book, that's what he says, And so some of these colors, so the most, the colors that get along the greatest are greens and yellows. So a stable and a yellow get along great, or a blue and a red get along great. Challenging combinations are green and reds, and blue and yellows, like my partner and I. So yellow and greens are relationship oriented. A red and a yellow would be extrovert, active implementers. Blue and reds together are task-oriented and issue-oriented. Blues and greens together are introvert, passive, and reserved. And that's as, a couple or your boss, like a interpersonal relationship at work, like, your boss and you and how you get along. But, and that's how they complement each other through the colors. A blue and red would get along, a red and yellow would get along, a yellow and green would get along, whatever. But a yellow and blue, they have issues. A green and a red, they have issues also. And it also is about self-awareness, too. You got to be aware of how you are, who you are. Understand that just because somebody is different and talkative and excitable and bouncing off the walls, it doesn't mean that they're ADHD. And I do think that in America that we overuse terminology way too much, and it's so easy to throw out words out there that we have no idea their background, where they came from, or how they were even found. And I haven't done any research on that area, but I do know that I've done a lot of psychiatrist work, trying to figure out medications that work for me, and now I am on no medications because this is my personality. Why suppress my personality to make somebody else happy? And I see this in relationships. I know a marriage right now, they've been together for 40 years where this happens every day. Somebody's suppressing themselves with medication because somebody else can't handle their behavior. And it's like, oh, so in reality, the person that can't handle the behavior, there's something wrong inside of them. not with the person who is talking and having a great time and being themselves. The person that wants you to medicate yourself pretty much is the person that has the issues inside of them. There's a misunderstanding about personality and behaviors that they don't know about, I think. And now I want to read to you about the greens. So here's a little bit about greens. And that's the stable color. And that's the most common person in the world is a stable. Patient, greens are relaxed. Greens are self-controlled, reliable, composed, loyal, modest, understanding. Greens are lengthy, stable, prudent. Greens are discreet, supportive. Greens are good listeners, helpful, producers. Greens are persistent, reluctant, thoughtful. And greens like to conceal feelings. Greens are considerate and kind. The negatives about a green are they are stubborn. Greens are uncertain. Greens are complainant. Greens are dependent. And greens are awkward. The positives, they're supportive, respectful, obliging, reliable, and pleasant. And I do want to tell you guys that this disc, the dominant, inspiring, stable, all those, there's over 50 million works that have been done by different doctors, psychologists all over the world. I mean, you can find tons of different readings and writings about the disc system. And I think that everybody should read into this. I learned so much from this book about my personality, and it explained me to a T, you guys. I was so dumbfounded. So anyways, this guy in this book, or the writer of this book, his name's Thomas Erickson. Thomas talks about the first time that he ever encountered a red. The guy was just he hired him to do a job, and he wound up firing him in the end, but he was just so mean. But he learned a lesson from that guy that, just because a person acts a certain kind of way doesn't mean that you have to respond. No, I shouldn't say that. Just because a person acts a certain way doesn't mean you have to react. You just need to learn how to respond, not react. The guy's name was Stir, and he didn't hesitate in the least to call anyone an idiot in front of the whole company that he owned. No one dared to have a one-on-one meeting with him. He never got to hear bad news because he would often shoot the messenger. That's a red. At one of the offices, a warning light had even been mounted at the entrance of the building. Discreetly placed above the receptionist desk, the light went red when Stir, the dominant, the red, he was there, and turned green when he was away. Everyone knew about the light. Not only staff, but even clients would automatically cast a nervous glance at the light to find out what awaited them when they stepped over the threshold. If the light went red, some people would simply turn back at the door, deciding to come back at a more opportune time. I'm like, wow. So that's how this guy did business for his company. Could you imagine that? And I do want to say this also. Not to go on, but I have gone on to read this guy's next book called I'm Surrounded by Psychopaths. And in that book, he talks about the presidents. The top two psychopaths as presidents were JFK, and Bill Clinton was second. And I think that about Bill Clinton. I mean, think about Megan's Law. He mocked the sex offender registry on national television when he said, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. He did. He should have been on that list. It's wild, man, the way this guy can... And so anyways, I want to tell you guys too about his other book, I'm Surrounded by Psychopaths, is he wrote that book because people took this book and turned it into controlling and manipulating people and learning how to use people, and it was wild, man. Somebody actually came out of the woodworks, a fan of his, and caused so much chaos in his life, had him arrested, his wife left him, He lost thousands of dollars because of one fan found him on Instagram and Facebook and made up a whole bunch of lies. And when it went to court, even the police and the judge and everybody said, I have never met such a cunning liar. It was wild. But back to what I was telling you earlier. I want to read to you guys now about blues. I find blues to be really interesting because I know a couple blues, and man, they are so challenging to get along with. My son's a blue, my stepson, and man, he is such a challenge to understand. And because blues have to have all of the facts, and if they don't, they can't make a decision. They'll literally go without making a decision just to save face. So blues are conscientious. Blues are systematic. They are distant. That is true. Blues are correct. Blues are conventional. Blues seem insecure. Objective, structured, analytical, perfectionist. Blues need time. Blues are reflecting. Blues are methodical. Blues seek facts. Quality oriented, scrutinizes, follows rules, logical, questioning, meticulous, reflecting, reserved. Some of the negatives of blues are they are critical, they are indecisive. See what I'm saying? They're indecisive. Like, they need all the facts, and if they don't have all the facts, they're indecisive. They can't make a decision. The blues are narrow-minded. Another negative is they are fastidious, and they are moralizing. Positives, they are diligent, thoughtful, serious, persistent, demanding, and methodical. And my old partner, man, he was all those things. And I sent this to him. He told me, like, he sent me a message back and said, that is unreal. Because there was a part about yellows and blues in here and how they act. And it was totally me and him. I had to send it to him. And he agreed, like, wow, he couldn't believe it. But the book is a good read. And I've learned so much about my own personal behaviors and how to communicate with others that I now go around finding myself trying to figure people out and see what they are. And then I know to turn down my talkativeness, or I know how to, make me respond to their personality as opposed to me blatantly just doing whatever I want, not realizing that this person and I just don't jive and we don't get along, or whatever it may be, whatever animosities are at play between different behavior types. And that's why I say, like, let's go get him on bipolar. You're bipolar. No, he's actually a yellow. He can get really, really hot-headed in 2 seconds if he feels like you're not with him or you're against him, and that's how I get. I get like that because I know I struggle with, negative self-upbringing, stuff like that. But a lot of this was just my own behavior. Like, I didn't understand my own behavior, and that's where a lot of my hang-ups came from, is not having self-awareness. And that's when I need to slow down. But remember, you guys, no system is perfect, but I feel like the more you're educated about behaviors and personalities, the more you're going to be well-rounded and getting along with people. Even in reading this book too, it made me realize I could go back and realize just throughout my life how many people that, like, I thought, wow, he really just hated my guts, or she just couldn't stand me. I couldn't believe it, and in reality they were just the opposite color type, that we did not vibe, we did not get along. Even my own mom, like a month back, told me, well, me and you just never vibed. And I mean, that really hurt my heart, but she just is unaware of her own behavior. She's unaware of her own personality. I'm aware of it because I've studied her my whole life. She made me. And she was the only one that wasn't aware of it. It's kind of sad, but, I mean, I want to talk to you guys too. It's like no book can, like, tell you a system, like, down to the point. You got to take things from books and create a system that works for you the way you understand it. The signals we constantly transmit around, or those around, the signals we transmit to those around us wouldn't fit, in every situation. The difference between male and female dialogue, culture differences, and all the other ways to define variations in communication. We wouldn't be able to write everything down. We couldn't add psychological aspects, graphology, age, and astrology. Still, not to get a 100% complete picture of how behaviors and personalities really do coincide and work together. Like I said, you got to come up with your own way to find, what's going on around you with other people to be able to interact with different behaviors than your own. Because, there are two ways to be completely happy. And this is the truth, you guys. You in a room by yourself, or you in a room with people exactly like you with the same exact personalities. That's the only way you can really be truly happy. And another way, another thing that people don't know is like at ages 3 and 4, we are started to be told then by the people that made us, no, get out of, no, don't touch that. Or oh, good boy, oh, good girl, oh, you did it, oh, and then you get praise, and yep, time for bed. You take you in there, lay you down in your crib, put you to bed at 8 o'clock, and then that's, what that is, you guys? Nobody ever tells us this. That is the beginning of domestication. You are starting to domesticate a human being. Even though if you didn't do those things, that human being could go on to form all those things on its own. But we domesticate, and then we create a judge and a victim inside of our minds. And those two play back and forth. Oh, don't do that. What's the judge is right there. Don't you do that. And then you got the victim. Oh, poor me, I did that. No. Everything's coming down on my whole world, poor me. But in reality, it goes back and forth. And it steals. And when you get domesticized, you no longer are happy. So in life, everybody talks about, oh, if you make so much money, you're going to be happy. Well, too bad, buddy. You've been domesticated. You're never going to be happy, homie. And that's the truth. So, and like I was saying is, man, I lost my train of thought here. Wow. Total COVID moment, guys. Brain fart. But you start doing that, and then you're no longer happy because, you've been domesticated at 3 and 4 years old, and then you find yourself just not happy at all. This is your boy Lo Jackson, and we're talking about Surrounded by Idiots, a book written by Thomas Erickson. And I want to tell you guys that I'm a yellow, and I don't know what color you guys are, but you should find out because it will change your life. And I feel like it's changing mine already. I do sometimes think I'm surrounded by idiots, and I say that too sometimes, but that's my personality, or that's my behavior type, not my personality type. Sorry, that's my behavior type. And it's really about self-awareness and getting to know yourself and being alive inside. We only have one life to live, and it's like, I don't know. I feel like I've been wasting time, because I didn't really understand myself, and I didn't understand why people mistreated me or why people treated me the way they did, or how things just happened the way they did. But a lot of this stuff is explainable now, why my mom and I didn't get along. Well, she was a blue, and it's hard for her and I to see eye to eye, even though we should find a way still. I'm trying to, y'all, promise. But in another one is it comes down to your core values, and that's a part of this book too. Core values are found deep within me. Their values so deeply embedded in my character that it's almost impossible to change them. These are the things I learned from my parents as a child, or that I learned in school when I was very young. In my case, it was different. It was a few different variations of study and do well in school or fighting is wrong. I told you guys about this stuff earlier. The latter, for example, means that I've never laid hands on another person. I haven't fought since third grade, and I seem to recall that I lost then. She was really strong. Another important core value is that all people are of equal worth. And there is no behavior out there that is right, and there is no behavior out there that is wrong, folks. And that's where us as a country and the criminal justice system needs to change, because I don't believe in a 6x9. That's never going to change anybody. The first prisons were invented in the United States in 1790 in Pennsylvania. And it was called penitentiary for a reason, because at the door they handed you a Bible and told you to repent for your sins. And when you entered that cell, you came out of there crazier than you ever were before. And you weren't the only one that was having mental issues with this. This has been going on since 1790. All of our family members that have been sent away to these 6x9 prisons, all the family members and children and mothers and fathers have all suffered mental anguish over time too. In many countries they don't even have prisons anymore, you guys. Just the United States, because it's a money revenue. It's all about money here, and it's unfortunate. But one day we will see that our core values are greater than that, and we will come back to let our mentally challenged and underprivileged and impoverished people back in society and let them know that, hey man, your negative upbringing, it was messed up, but it's all right to be different and go on to try new challenges and become something that you never thought you could be, because for once in your life, you took the time to understand yourself and your behaviors, It's because I want to tell you this. My parents demonstrated this to me during my childhood. I know it is deeply wrong to judge a person based on his or her origin, sex, or color. All of us carry many such core values. We know instinctively what is right and what is not. No one can take these core values away from us. Remember that, folks. And and in this book, Surrounded by Idiots, he also Thomas talks about attitudes and approaches. As the next layer is my attitudes, which are not exactly the same thing as core values. Attitudes are things I have formed opinions about based on my own experiences or on conclusion I have drawn from encounters in the latter part of my schooling, high school, college, or my job. Even experiences later on in life can form attitudes. Divorce, death, deceit, discrimination, being fired from a job, all these things in life that go on with us that changes the neuroplasticity in your brain, and very, very well-renowned thinkers would call this the neuroplasticity in your brain light, because without light nothing can change. It's all darkness. And when the Bible talks about that, the psychological term for light is neuroplasticity, people. And I do believe that, because that's the whole point of life, is becoming light. It's not about how evil we can get and how much money we can secure and save, because in the Bible, Jesus tells us, does God, do the birds store food in a barn to feed themselves? Do the birds worry where their next meal's going to come from? They don't, because they know our God is good, and they will be fed, and they will have a home and a shelter, but it takes them realizing that they're going to have to help out too. It's not just going to be given to you. A relative once told me that she didn't trust salespeople. She's definitely not alone in having strong feelings about salespeople, but in her case, it resulted in comical practices. She couldn't buy anything without returning it. A sweater, a sofa, a car. The buying process was endless. Every fact had to be examined and explored. No matter how much research she did beforehand, she always wanted to return her purchases afterwards. That's called buyer's remorse, y'all. Once I had observed the pattern, I asked her why she did this, and she explained the reasoning behind her attitude. 85% of all salespeople were swindlers, explaining that I, too, was a salesperson, had little effect. To this day, I don't know if I belong to the 85% or if I can count myself among the fortunate 15%. The important thing is that an attitude can change. And yes, it can. And core values are at the soul. The next layer to core values is attitudes. After attitudes are formed, we form core behaviors. After core behaviors are formed, we form moderated behaviors. And that's learned in society by interacting with other people and knowing social cues when somebody's upset, when people's body language is pointing their feet away from you, or, that's moderated behaviors. And all this is affected by our environment. Whatever environment you're in, it goes, that's affecting all those things. The environment is affecting all those things and your core values. So it goes core values, attitudes, core behaviors, moderated behaviors, environment. Both my core values and my attitudes affect how I choose my behavior. Together they form my core behavior, the real person I want to be. My core behavior is how I act in complete freedom without the influence of any external factors at all. And that's what I'm talking about, is those 3 and 4-year-olds over there playing, having the time of their life. I'll never forget it. When my little girl Addison was 4, I shit you not, we're at Walmart. I'm there to get cilantro to make homemade salsa. And there's probably a 58-year-old woman next to me. She was a little shorter than me, and her butt was about as big as I was tall. And she was stocking green peppers. And I remember my little girl, boy, that lady's butt was like right at eye level. And Addison was 4. I'm looking at the cilantro, picking it out. And she's like, "Dad, look at that big old butt." Oh, man. The lady didn't even skip a beat. She kept on stocking the green peppers. And I'm like, I laughed a little. I'm like, oh, man. And she's like, Addison looks at me again. She's like, "Dad, that's the biggest butt I've ever seen." I fucking grabbed my kid, took off, running to the front where the flowers are by the fresh vegetables, took a left, set her down there in the next aisle, and I said, "Addison, you can't do that. You just hurt that lady's feelings." And she's like, "Daddy, it was true." I fucking died. And I'm like, "Addie, it doesn't matter if it was true." I'm like, that person has feelings. She has emotions inside of her. And you could have just hurt her little heart and soul. And she's like, Addison said, "Dad, if she would have sat on me, she would have killed me. And we were just standing there." Now, if that's not the purest heart, the truest, freest behavior, people, think about it. Think about how you got domesticated. And exactly what I talked about, these core values right here. Both my core values and my attitudes affect how I choose my behavior. So, my little girl was taught to be honest. And she was. Together they formed core behaviors, the real person I want to be. My core behavior is how I act in complete freedom without the influence of any external factors at all. And I love that. And I think about that story when I read my psychological books and I learn about, you guys, ages 3 and 4, I never knew it, but it's so important. At ages 3 and 4 is when we when we form our fight or flight mechanisms of fear and love and compassion. And without those things, we go on to be depressed people. But in reality, we're just becoming domesticated. And even for dogs, that's why you see your dog going, and you're like, "Oh, what's wrong, puppy dog?" Well, he's domesticated. That's what's wrong with him. Don't be silly. Be aware, y'all. I'm getting aware. I'm not saying that I don't fall into deep depressions and stupors. This past year, 2021, it was one of the hardest years of my life, man. I got knocked down, drug out last year, y'all, and I'm not kidding. I thought, yeah, when I got in trouble back in, I don't know when it was. I was 22, but I thought that was the hardest time of my whole life. Fighting for my innocence. Well, it wasn't. This was, man. This past year, losing people I thought didn't. I never thought that. I mean, I knew I cared about them, but man, I just didn't know I really held on to that stronghold of caring. I didn't realize I had that much caring inside of me till last year. Oh man, to lose a best friend and not be able to tell him goodbye because he was an addict, man. I don't know, y'all. But anyways, those core behaviors are important. Core beliefs are important. People are different. Some don't care. They are always themselves because they never reflected upon how they are perceived. And that's what I do. I used to never reflect on how I was perceived by people. Man, that's all I ever do. I spend my time in reflection every day. And each day I try to go back to work and, be a little bit better. Like, hey, man, don't talk so much tonight. Hey, man, turn it down a little bit with the energy, because unfortunately, you guys, being a yellow, I've lost a lot of jobs because people just hate that I talk all the time and I'm excited all the time. And they're miserable that I'm so excited and they can't be because honestly, at my new job, I got a partner. He's a green. I knew right away. I said, well, I'm going to do all the talking for Shane and me, okay? He don't have to say anything. I got it. Everybody died laughing because they knew that Shane didn't talk and I was always talking. But those are things I learned to work on, The stronger your self-understanding is, the greater your probability of adapting to people around you. And then that makes you think, though, how do people perceive me? And then surrounded by idiots, he writes a part in here, and it's like, how do people perceive me? The people around me, the people around you the most often see your moderated behavior. You interpret a specific situation and make a choice about how to act based on the evaluation. This is the behavior that others around you experience. It's all about the mask you wear to fit into a given situation. We all have several different masks. Having one at work and one at home isn't that unusual. And another one for visiting the in-laws, perhaps. Yeah, that's for real. And man, my in-laws came for 2 weeks this past Thanksgiving. I loved it. I love them being here. And I'm telling you guys, the movie Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase, it didn't have nothing on my Thanksgiving. I mean that. You get a father-in-law, 7 states away, just had back surgery 6 weeks before. Oh, Levi, would you tear out the tile in your bathroom and put up a surround so I could shower in there? Sure, Dad, why not? As the pipe burst and the 5 different county fire departments came to my house that night. Oh, yeah. As everybody ran outside as my bathroom was flooding. I kid you not. Bless their little hearts, though. It was a great Thanksgiving, and it was really a time to realize how wonderful family really is and how much time we really don't have, you guys, to spend with each other, and just need to be grateful for one another at all times, if we can. Excuse me. But I am content to establish that we interpret situations differently and act accordingly. And we all do in work and in play and at home and, different people's, I know I do. And I have always wondered, like, I tell my kids, why is it that you would pick that stranger running across the street from our house in the moment of an emergency as opposed to me standing here, the one that's been securing your life and making sure you were taken care of, and that's how kids are these days. They'll choose a complete stranger over mom and dad across the street because that's how these high up psychologists taught our government that things should be like that. Things, you take mom and dad out of the home and you replace it with school and the government, dude. You get some wild kids, I think. And maybe I'm wrong. But I really love this book, you guys, and I hope everybody out there reads it. I think it was like 170 pages, maybe 228 pages. I can't remember, but it wasn't that big of a book, and it was a great read. To learn about the colors and to learn about myself, my behaviors, and how I interact with people, it's really wild, man. It's something, just, like me, I'm an inspire person. I'm a yellow. I'm inspiring. I'm rapid reaction, maximum effort to involve myself, minimal interest in routine, future time frame, impulsive action, tendency to reject isolation. That's totally me. Okay, here's a red. Quick reaction, maximum effort to control, minimum interest for caution. Minimum interest for caution in relationships. Current time frame, direct action, tendency to avoid involvement. For a blue, the compliant. I'm sorry, I can't read. Compliant. Slow reaction, maximum effort to organize, minimal interest in relationships, historical time frame, cautious action, tendency to avoid involvement. And for the stable, the green, the most common color is calm reaction, maximum effort for connection, minimal interest in change, current time frame, supportive action, tendency to reject conflict. And my wife is a green, you guys, and that's why her and I get along so well, and we don't ever fight. It's crazy. I mean, I shouldn't say that. We do fight, but it ain't like unhealthy fighting 24/7 where I hate your guts. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes we'll get there, every now and then, but very rarely. Seriously, like maybe 3 times in 5 years we've ever said anything really that coarse. About 80% of all people have a combination of 2 colors. They dominate their behavior. Approximately 5% have only 1 color that dominates behavior. The others are dominated by 3 colors. Throughout time, I'm sure there's many, many people out there that have wondered, why am I so much like so-and-so? Or why is that person just like this person? Or, Johnny, he needs to put on ADHD medicine. He's bouncing off the walls. He won't stop talking. It's like, wow, man. He just can't be himself, It's crazy. But I just want to say thank you guys for listening to this. That was a little bit about, the behavior types. And another thing too, Hypocrites and his theory of human temperament called chloric. Nowadays, you might call a red person bold, ambitious, driven, but also potentially hot-tempered, rash, or dominant. I like that. Because that tells you about a red. Reds are wild, man. Reds are your CEOs. He grabbed the latest flyer for the game and pointed out that it was called a soccer tournament. Tournaments are competitions, and if you compete, you are in it to win, and that's simple. And that's how a red thinks. There's girls out there that are like that. I've dated them, man. Totally terrifying. I find that kind of funny. I think, let me tell you how things really are, okay, with a red. A red gives everything he's got. When he has an opinion about something, or if he wants the rest of us to agree with him, he pulls out all stops. Once I was in a meeting, I can't talk, you guys. Seriously, just totally had a brain fart. I was like reading this and I lost my spot 3 times. I was in a meeting with a large number of people who didn't know one another that well. It was a gathering of consultants who were meeting to discuss a potential collaboration. In the middle of a recession, and we were all concerned about the lack of direction. While we were waiting for the chairperson to arrive, we chatted a little about everything, and at the end of the table sat Elizabeth, who had strong opinions about everything. In an unequivocal voice, she suddenly stated that the company was still expecting to earn over $50 million a week, despite the recession. About 15 consultants, all highly trained, reflective, and intelligent people, nodded in agreement. Just imagine, $50 million per week, while Elizabeth expanded on how the situation ought to be resolved in the consulting world. I began thinking about the figures that she had just spit out of her mouth, not knowing where these figures came from. She lied, and then she let everybody there, and everybody agreed with her. Meeting over, adjourned, and they went on with it. Is that not crazy? That's a red. She instantly pulled all stops out, made something up, and went forward just so she could feel like she was getting somewhere. And I think that's so anyways, The conclusion on a red's behavior. So what do you think? Do you know any reds? Do you have any around you? If you want to get to know some famous red people, consider Steve Jobs, FDR, Venus Williams, or Margaret Thatcher. There's also Barack Obama and Mother Teresa. Oh yes, it's true. If you consider Mother Teresa's deeds, the strength she needed, and whom she had to deal with, the world's foremost leaders, to achieve what she did, then you'll realize that she was extremely determined and forceful. A typical red profile, y'all. I find that really interesting. So how to recognize someone who's headed in the clouds and get him back into reality. This is a yellow behavior. In the hypocrite world, we have now come to the sanguine. He called this person the sanguine person. Sanguine. I don't know how to say that word. Sanguine person? That's me. I'm a sanguine person, y'all. I got a silicone personality. What other words can you use to describe him? Optimistic and cheerful, a person with a bright outlook in life? Yeah. There are people who live to live, always find opportunities for enjoyment. Life is a banquet, and yellows will see to it that they savor every bit. True, that's me, man. Recognize a yellow easy. He's the one who's talking all the time. He's the one who gives answers rather than questions, offers answering questions that no one has even asked. He answers a question by telling a story. That's me, you guys. Totally. If any of you know me, you'd know that's true. Like reds, yellows are very willing to make quick decisions, but they can rarely explain why using rational reasoning. A more likely response would be, it just felt right. And sure, gut feelings shouldn't be underestimated. Studies have shown that gut feelings are right more often than we think. But that's not the kind of gut feeling we're talking about here. Yellows often make decisions that are based on feelings simply because no thought was ever involved. Is that not crazy? Like, man, I do believe some of that. It's like, wow, man. A yellow is enthusiastic, charming, outgoing, inspiring, optimistic, flexible. Yeah, we learned about that. Just like reds, yellows have lots of energy. They find most things interesting, and yellow individuals are most curious people you'll ever meet. Everything new is enjoyable. I find that kind of wild. I really do want to read a little bit more about, or tell you a little bit more about the green behavior. Why change is so difficult? Oh wait, maybe I should do the conclusion about the yellow. Yellows know everyone. They have more acquaintances than everyone else. They like everyone. A yellow doesn't need to know a person very well before calling him his friend. Anyone who doesn't actively dislike them, they consider to be a pal. Remember that when reds ask what is going to be done, yellows want to know immediately who will do it. This question is crucial for yellows. If the team or group does not function smoothly, a yellow will not feel well. If needs functioning relationships for him to come into his own. He needs functioning relationships for him to come into his own. Interesting. All right, on to greens. How are we going to do this? It's not urgent, right? The green person is the most common. You'll meet him virtually everywhere. I find that kind of funny. Yellows are creative, bon vivant guys. Blues are perfectionist knights of Excel spreadsheets. That was my old partner. He did everything in Excel spreadsheets. Greens are the most balanced. They counterbalance the others' more extreme behavioral traits. The Aztecs called them earth people. Calm, leisurely, and easygoing are some words that could be described. The means that greens don't stick out in the way as others do, and they often lend serenity to a situation. Where reds and yellows start off in top gear, greens are significantly calmer. And where blues get caught up in details, greens try to feel their way to what is right. For this reason, they are easy to deal with. They let you be yourself, they don't demand much, and they never kick up a fuss unnecessarily. Children with green features are usually described as being little angels. They eat when they're supposed to. They sleep when they're supposed to. They do their homework when they're supposed to. But it's not just that. Greens will not offend people if they can avoid it. They'd rather not offend anyone at all, and they won't talk about it if the boss makes a strange decision, and they won't talk back if the boss makes a strange decision, or at least not to its face. We often hang out with a family where the husband. Okay, I don't want to tell you guys about that one. That was a long. Nah, I'll tell you. I'm gonna skip that one. I don't know. This is a typical green trait. Let's see. They are very tolerant towards others, and they have more of a singular behavior. Some green people are show kindness personified. You can expect a helping hand whenever you need it. They are pronounced relational people who will do everything within their power to save your relationship. It's often said that greens are the best listeners, and this is true. A green will always be more interested in you than himself or herself, and if perhaps he or she should be interested in himself or herself, he or she would never dream of showing it. You often find greens in the public sector where they help others with no concern for personal gain. I find that pretty interesting. I know a green, and I like her. She's all right in my books. Sometimes people. Do you guys know any greens out there? I know a ton of greens, man. I like greens, though. I get along with them pretty good. The blue behavior. In pursuit of perfection. The last of the four colors is an interesting fellow. You've probably met him. He doesn't make a fuss about himself, but he does keep tabs on what is happening around him. While a green will just go with the flow, a blue has all the right answers. In the background, he analyzes, classifies, evaluates, and assesses. You know you've met a blue if you visit someone's home and everything is organized in a particular way. Clear labels and names on each hook so that the children would know exactly where to hang up their jackets. Dinner menus divided into 6-week intervals to ensure a balanced diet. Stuck on the refrigerator door. If you look at his tools, you'll find that everything has its own spot and nothing is out of place. That was my old partner, you guys. Seriously, I'm telling you. We all have a friend like that. Think about it. You're sitting in a restaurant with your friends. You're discussing cats, football, or space rockets. Someone throws out a random comment. It may be your red friend who claims that the Patriots have been to the Super Bowl 11 times, even though Tom Brady just retired today. It can be the yellow who cheerfully claims that as a child he lived in the same block as Will Smith. Oh God, that's me totally. Sheesh. Your blue bloody, blah, 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 blah. Your blue buddy clears his throat and in a general voice says that the Patriots have actually only been to the Super Bowl 10 times with their first appearance after 1985 season and 8 times in 2001. That's my best friend right there. And that Will Smith actually grew up in Winfield, which is well north of the block in question. That is too funny. Yeah. We all know blues, right? Let's see. There's also no need to cheer, applaud, or call a blue up to the podium when he's done with something tremendous in an amazing way. Sure, it doesn't really do any harm to cheer. He'll just nod, accept the praise and the prize check, and then return to his desk where he'll continue working on the next project. But he may well wonder what the fuss was really all about. He was only doing his job. And that was my old partner. He was just like that. Badass dude. I loved him. I wish I could have been more like him. A blue can rarely get too many facts or have too many pages of fine print. People say that God is in the details, and I can imagine that it was a blue who first said that. No detail is too small to be noticed. Cutting corners is simply not an option for a blue. Hey, that's somebody. So your blues are like CEOs, engineers, executives, supervisors, stuff like that. I do want to say thank you guys for listening. That's going to probably hang it up for today. It's been a while, I know. I'm back to work. I'm doing a lot of stuff. Keep working on yourselves. This is the Only You podcast. I haven't done a lot. I've been working on myself. I've been reading more, studying more, and working a lot more hours trying to get caught up. But I love you guys, and thanks for listening. And I'll let you know, or I'll have you know that I will be back soon. And thank you again for listening.